What's up, everybody? This is the Rabbit Hedgehog with a native Oklahoma City. We're moving on to our next in the line of the Scout platform, and this is the 2025 Indian Scout Classic. And the Classic is going to have the flowing fenders of the original style Scout that came out in 2015. We're also going to see the addition of wire wheels aboard the Scout versus the mag wheels that were on it before. This one is going to be a Scout Classic in limited plus tech trim. There are 3 total packages when it comes down to the Indian Scout. When it comes to these, unlike the 101 Scout, which is everything limited plus tech basically, the Scout Classic can go all the way to a base where ABS is the only standard feature, and it will have keyed ignition, analog gauges, and then you move up to limited. When you move up to limited, you get the cruise control and the throttle modes and some other things. Then you move up to limited plus tech with keyless entry, ride command, and all that good stuff as well. Looking at this one, of course, having the flowing fenders, it looks like the old classic Scout still has the vertical tail light. Still powered by the 1250 Speed Plus engine. This Speed Plus engine is going to be rated at 105 horsepower. A traditional fork, all LED lighting, including the front now. Standard style mirrors. Low profile. You're still talking around a 25-inch seat when loaded. All of them have the new style tank. Go ahead and lift it off the side stand. Very easy to lift up off the side stand, even on this. A little bit of an incline here. This one's the more pulled back for sure style handlebar, just like the original Classic. So you sit very much well planted on the motorcycle in a cruiser position with very low arms. No rise, no nothing. Just straight down from shoulder to elbow, straight out to the bars. Great for new riders. As you can see, you have plenty of leverage, and that's what makes these bikes great for that. And for advanced riders too, who need a little bit more leverage to get around town, you have quite a bit of ability to do that on these Scouts due to the placement of the bars. I like this setup probably the most because that's just how I feel a cruiser should be. Anyway, the ergos are the same across the Scout platform and FTR in that case. Press the button here. Ride command starts to come up. You scroll through your ride command over here. You also do your engine cutoff switch over here. You have your brights, forward, flash to pass. Cruise control is press in, press down. Your back button, your menu button, plus your joystick to control your menu navigation. You also have your turn signals that are self-canceling from a stop, and horn. Over here on the ride command itself, glove accessible, changeable. You can have the full cluster right there. Swipe it and get this one. I hate that one, so I like this one. App screen is this one here. That way you can go through all the apps. You can press this menu button as your, there you go, as your selection screen, so you can scroll through all that with that menu button as well and all that good stuff. You can also do that through your navigation, which this one does have navigation, being that it has the ride command and the tech package, so scroll in and out with the stick as well. Menu button here, that way you can go through all your menu accessories, or you can just back it out right there on that right side. So pretty standard across the Scout range in terms of the controls and everything. Mirrors are set, everything's ready to go. Before we take this ride, let me thank my sponsors, AGVSportUSA, for providing the gear for Rabbit Hedgehog and his team. I also want to thank Law Tigers of Oklahoma. They're out there right now, part of the community, getting rider awareness out there, helping us hopefully avoid accidents. But if that something happens, they're ready to fight for us. And also Doug Crawford, USA Synthetics, and his AMSOIL products, keeping our internals safe and sound. Anyway, let's get this thing started. As you can see, no muss, no fuss when it starts. So pretty good there. Unlike the previous Scouts, does have the side stand warning. So even though there was a marker on the Scout there, they didn't use it. They do now. So good news. We're starting out in standard mode for the beginning part of this ride. When it comes to the Scout Classic, you're going to have a traditional fork up front and traditional shocks in the rear. Your traditional shocks are going to carry a 3-inch suspension travel. So you have the longer travel on this version of the Scout. Front has the same 4.7-inch travel as all the others, but again in that conventional fork setup. The new tank on these are 3.4 gallons versus 3.3, so slightly bigger. Range is still expected to be somewhere around 120s, 130s or so. Clutch response on this one is a little bit far out there. I'm hearing, though, that we're actually getting a change on that already. So they've got several of them manufactured, but they're going through and actually working on those clutches at this time. So that's a good deal. They listen to feedback very quickly. And I do have to say that with it being far out there, that may alarm some new riders. Folks that have had some experience, that have gone through multiple different clutches, basically, they would know how to modulate that, but not everybody knows that they will pop suddenly if they're that far out on travel and feel that numb. But I have to say that after getting used to it, it's not that bad of a clutch in the long run. I've still dealt with worse. I would say not in this price point, which is unfortunate, but you know, it's one of those things of they're fixing it. These are very early production models, and early production models do have some hiccups, and they listen very quickly, and they're already fixing them. So it's going to get nothing but better. And that's the good news on the clutch side of it. But like I said, this one's a little bit far out there versus the 101 Scout. I think the 101 Scout so far has had the best clutch out of all three of the Scout variants that I have ridden so far. I have to say this is a very interesting feel on the Scout Classic. Whereas in the Sport Scout and the 101 Scout, I felt like I was sitting more inside the motorcycle, and on the Scout Classic, I feel like I'm very much on top of it. I don't hate that. We know that I like to feel more on top, where I have a little bit more play with my hips and everything to kind of work the motorcycle, and this one actually provides that very nicely. It's a very upright seating position, so right now from my hips to the knee, it's actually feels oddly closer than the 101 Scout. I think the seat sits back further on the 101 Scout. This one sits a little bit more forward, so it puts my legs almost straight up to my knees. Whereas there's a little bit more bend to the pegs on the 101 Scout. Again, I'm 6 foot tall, 32-inch inseam, size 14 feet, so my feet are out there in the wind pretty good there, but it feels strange. Like I said, I feel like I'm just sitting right planted on top of the motorcycle, and the seat kind of cups you right there too, so it's kind of an interesting sensation on a Scout, because I am not used to a Scout being this upright. I feel like that the older variant on the Scout Classic had more of a forward peg design and stretched you out a little bit further, and definitely had you feeling more like you're inside the bike, where this one just feels like I'm literally sitting on a chair, just perfectly, just like at home, and just my hands are just doing something, you know. It's boop. They come straight down. Like I said, it's a very upright position, so I go straight up from my hips to my shoulders, shoulders down to my elbows, elbows straight out 90 degrees to the bar. Very, bam, just position. Not a bad thing at all. In fact, it's quite comfortable. I find it more comfortable than the older Scout Classic. For some reason, that one made me feel more cramped despite being more stretched out. And it's hard to describe that, but I think it was the angle at which I sat and the way my legs came out and then back out. This one is, since it's more straight in every way, just feels more planted and comfortable for the rider. So it's a very upright, classic position. It's very reminiscent of a Royal Enfield Meteor 350, which is slightly forward of mid. It's basically just straight down seating and just straight up. I mean, it's wonderful. In terms of the standard suspension set with the 3-inch travel rear shocks that are the standard style, non-piggyback, just preload adjustable, and the standard fork, it actually is not too chatty whatsoever. It's very well planted. Something I noted about the Sport Scout as well, which has the very similar suspension to this one. I misspoke on that one thinking it was 2 inches. It is a 3-inch travel on the Sport Scout. I put that in the description to correct it. But this one has for sure the 3-inch travel. The way it sits me upright actually makes it ride better than the Sport Scout because it doesn't put as much bumps into my back as the other one. It actually just handles very nicely. In fact, I think this is a fantastic riding motorcycle right now. It's very reminiscent of my Enfield 350 that I had. And I really like that motorcycle. I like the way it rode and the way it did things. And this is just the big brother of that. And it feels really good, actually. Now, in terms of braking, we're using the standard Indian braking package. We do have a single disc up front, single disc in the rear. Generally, Indian uses J1, I do believe, as their stock component maker. So that's the one we are using in this case. And we will test that out shortly. We know that when it comes to the Speed Plus engine, any engine braking is fantastic on this motorcycle. The transmission has been spot on every model so far. Of course, having the new slipper assisted clutches and everything is quite nice to have across the line. So very well done indeed in terms of the redesign and new engine package and transmission. Visibility off the motorcycle is great. These mirrors being as big as they are, I do see a little bit of my shoulders and elbow in them, but I can see across all lanes of traffic right now and behind me cleanly and beautifully because there's not that much vibration coming through. We are in standard mode in 6th gear at 31-ish 100 RPM at 65 miles an hour, maybe 3,000, somewhere in there, just depending on where we are in travel. And she's handling this nicely. Cruise control is, of course, on and handling itself very amicably in terms of, and cruise control is on and handling itself very wonderfully right now, keeping this motorcycle at tempo at where I set it. Doesn't drop too bad or nothing. Just an overall great motorcycle and great package here. When it comes to the feel of these motorcycles, this one's about 20 pounds lighter than the previous one that's heading out. And it has just a little bit more horsepower, 5 more horsepower at 105 versus 100. We still scream up to 9,000 RPM with the Speed Plus engine. So you still get a high revving engine. But the one thing I've always liked about the Scout line is how easy it is to approach that power, that it comes on strong at the higher RPM, not at the lower. So that way when you're starting out and or you're just going around traffic and town and stuff and you don't need all that power, it rides very economically, very easily through traffic, cuts through the city like butter. And then when you want to play on some twisties and do some bad things, the Scout will oblige by doing that. It just has a little bit less, ground clearance than some other motorcycles that are as spirited in engine as these are. The one thing is the FTR is fantastic in terms of its lean angle and its power plant and everything, but I would like to see this engine move to the FTR because I feel like it's a little bit smoother and acts a little bit more kinder, and I bet you can get more power out of it, being that's a little bigger. FTR's at 1203, this one being a 1250. You would see a little bit more horsepower even, and I don't think it will have the fueling issues that the FTR has when it first starts. These on cold starts have been a gem so far, something that the FTR cannot say, and that's something I want to note on that, because just kind of thought about it. I'm just taking off on these really cold, not really warming them up or nothing, and they are happily going through without anything basically. I know that the other Scout engine was very much that same way, but I can see this Speed Plus engine being used in lots of applications and being able to have fun in all those applications. It's a great engine, and this chassis that is around it, and 101 Scout, Sport Scout, and Scout Classic have all been nice and comfortable. Being so low to the ground, your knee is very bent, and it's very easy to hold one-footed at the stoplights. And even with all the wind, I've got a crosswind right now coming from my right-hand side, and it's not trying to blow me around or over or anything, and that's a good thing. I like that about these motorcycles when they're that low to the ground. It gives people confidence to be able to have their foot on the ground and extra leverage to control it as well, especially if they're walking it backwards and both feet are in motion. It's good to be low and good to have the leverage that you get off of these motorcycles. And they're so well balanced, and center of gravity is so low, they're easy to push around and easy to maneuver. So that's a good day for sure for a rider to start out with. I really enjoy the manners this bike has in town. The Scout Classic and all the Scouts so far have just been happily going through town, not fussing about anything, don't feel like they're luggy at city speeds. There's some bikes out there that definitely do not feel happy till they're on the highway, and the Scout is definitely not one of them. It feels happy in whatever environment that it has been in so far. Again, with the balance of the chassis, you can get really slow maneuvering like I'm doing here in the traffic, and you don't need to worry about your foot going down and walking it or anything. It's very easy to balance this motorcycle, and even with the clutch being out there a little bit of ways in response, it's still easy to modulate enough that you are able to keep well balanced in traffic. And this being my third ride, and the second one with that kind of awkward clutch, it actually has gotten to the point where it's very easy to manipulate and remember. So it's something that you could get used to, but like I said, they are fixing that clutch design, and that will be out there here pretty soon when the one's released. So you can see I'm going out right there, and we're almost to the end of travel when it starts to get in that friction zone. So it's out there a little bit of ways. Like I said, the 101 Scout, you got out to about that 3 and you felt it going, and you had a little bit more travel in there. And I don't know if that's from the engine tune, and that could be something from engine tune or whatnot. Hey, look, it's Gizmo Duck and his one wheel. I don't know why I'm just saying that. Anywho, but yeah, the travel on that clutch felt better. Like I said, I don't know if that's due to tuning or how that worked, but that one to me felt the best so far. This one is easy to modulate now that I know, basically. In standard mode, like I said, we're still going through traffic real nicely. Engine heat, nothing really to speak of. at this time. Every now and again, I'll get some that creep up through the seat pan. You'll feel some heat coming through, but I don't feel it at this moment. I'm going straight into the wind as well, and like I said, I don't feel it. I think the only time I felt it is tailwinds, and these Scouts do not get as hot as the previous model. I don't feel it. I mean, we're 81 degrees right now, so we're getting up to temperature pretty decent, and the engine temperature is probably up there as well. Engine temperature is 194 right now, so yeah, it's getting up there. You know, so I would say with an engine temperature near 200 degrees by being in the stop and go traffic, we're giving her a good run in the city to feel out if it starts to get crispy, and I just don't feel it. Going over these bumpier roads down here in Oklahoma City, I could tell you right now this Scout is handling it very well. I like it better than the original Scout. The original Scout had a little bit harsher suspension for sure in its stock form, and the suspension on this one is much more refined in the 3-inch travel version. And like I said, it feels way more refined than the old one. It doesn't chatter. The old front end to me felt like it had a pretty decent chatter to it, and every once in a while the front end would feel light as well. And so far, all three of the versions that I have ridden have had very well planted front ends and feel very flickable. And this one, again, I can move my hips, I can move my arms, and the whole chassis responds very well. It's very light on its feet, it's very flickable, and it's very happy to be out here and riding. And it would do some good canyons and carving and some other things if you so choose to do so. Again, the great thing about the new Scout lineup is that all of them have matching docks and everything, so that way all bags and accessories fit one another. And also the systems are modular, so if you want to update these, you can update with keyless and other things that are just a modular plug-in versus you know, having to have a whole other bike and everything that would be required to put them on there. I'm going to go ahead and go to sport mode here. Accidentally bumped up to that other speedometer. There we go. All right, sport mode is activated. Still 50 miles an hour, 7,000 RPMs the first gear. She's doing good. Accelerates really well. Like I said, you get those vibrations in that upper echelon starting at a little over $4,000 into the mid-range, and you really get vibey toward the end of the travel. So the engine's going to tell you when it wants to shift, that's for sure. But overall, a very nice rider. I would want a little bit more cushion in the seat versus the stock seat, and maybe about an inch backward to be perfect for how I'd like to sit, because the one thing about the infield seat that I was mentioning earlier, that it feels like it sits like, it was definitely a longer seat and wider, but it didn't cup either. This one has that cup to it that holds you in the saddle really well. And I think as a bigger person at 6 foot tall and 209 pounds, that cupping is just a little aggressive for my size, but overall, still not uncomfortable. I would just prefer a little more. All right, testing out that single front brake up front, coming down to the highway, hit the bump, dragging foot, at only 30 miles an hour, 25, 30. Yeet! Second gear to 80. Slow that down a little bit. Still a lot of vibration going through the mirrors right now. Like I said, I'm a little over $4,000 right now. I'm in fourth gear at 70. I'm getting that step down, and now we're clear. Well, we got rid of that imbalance in the engine. So like I said, somewhere over $4,000, you start getting a little bit of vibration coming through. It's not a big deal though. I've been on far worse, and I do believe that you need to communicate with your engine needs to communicate with you. If you are disconnected, then are you really riding a motorcycle? I like a bike with character, and this one has character. I do feel hilariously big on it, but at the same time I feel comfortable. With only a few small little complaints. Like I said, I wish the seat wasn't as cupped as it was. And after that, and a little more cushion, and I think I'd be peachy right there. Again, the visibility out of these standard mirrors are fantastic. The ergos are great. Everything is thumbable and glovable. You know what it is. You don't have to look at it to access and mess with it. You know what you're doing. And that's a great thing to have on a motorcycle, is one that allows you to control it without needing to look down. So I do like that about this setup, being familiar and easy to use. Again, on this much more broken road, and back in the grooves as well. Let me go try to take this groove. It's not pulling me on that one. I'm coming back to this one. There's just something about this new set of tires that they got on these Scouts that it's doesn't travel in those grooves at all. The old ones used to do that quite frequently. As I ride one of my teammates' Scout all the time, and it will get into a groove and just kind of sit there, whereas this model and the other two are not being affected in any way by the rain grooves. It's not pulling me into it and keeping me stuck in it. I'm able to get in and out and traverse it just fine, and I don't feel like the handlebars are moving under me or nothing. It's very well planted and riding very comfortably. Again, I've got a solid crosswind to my left side right now at 70 miles an hour, and this motorcycle is very comfortable here and is not being moved around. So its road handling characteristics and its road hugging characteristic is very good. I could tell you that this suspension is not as good as the 101 Scouts. Going over some of these bumps, I got a little bit more harshness for sure, but that's to be expected. But it's still not bad at all considering what it has been in the past. I'm really digging the new suspension tuning and setup. It's working rather well for this motorcycle, and there is no complaints about the suspension overall, because it's communicative. It's telling me what's happening between me and the wheels to the ground. Everything is good. Braking is good. And handling speeds and everything is fantastic. All in all, a good ride so far. I really like sport mode on the Scout Classic because it's very one-to-one and manageable. Again, coming from the 101 Scout straight to this one, even with the lesser braking package, I don't feel like it's an abrupt change. I feel like that these brakes are very adequate. They bite very well, Not as hard as those Brimbos, that's for sure. Of course, I only have a single disc as well, but I can still modulate these brakes and everything beautifully. Front and rear brake communicate very nicely. And all is well. I really do enjoy the refinement of this Scout. I enjoy the way it feels. I enjoy the way it rides. I enjoy the Speed Plus engine. It's a very good engine. And I like the way everything feels more uprated and just more refined. The original Scout was a great bike, but riding these back to back to back shows me how far we've come in the 9 years of the original Scout being our platform to begin with. This motorcycle is a darling. And no, I'm not trying to be biased or nothing. I know I work for Indian of Oklahoma City, but when I like a motorcycle, I like a motorcycle. It doesn't matter what it is. If I hate it, you're gonna know it. There's a reason why my most hated video is why I hate the Yamaha Bolt, because I hate that thing with a passion. The Honda Fury is not very far behind it, and I've never finished a video on it because it was just as mean as the Bolt one. Because the Fury was awful. Love the Shadow. You know, they're great bikes. There's a lot of great bikes out there. But what I like about the Scout and the new platform is just how much better and how much more refined and how easy they are to approach. Every single one of them just feels so lightweight, so well balanced, low center of gravity, easy to maneuver. Everything speaks to you really well, and to me that makes the better motorcycles of the world. I don't care about full-out customizations and all that all the time. I kind of prefer to have a motorcycle that starts out good and is only made better. Not one that starts out as trash, see Yamaha Bolt for details, and has to be made better. I would rather it come out nice and easy to ride and wonderful out of the box. And any other change that makes it that little bit better is icing on the cake. And I believe that's what we can do with the Scout. Like I said, I would only change the seat. That's the only thing I would change on this one right now, is I would like to have just a little bit more cushion and a little less cupping. Let's see if she touches down. Oh yeah, she touches down way faster than the 101. Scrape, 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 scrape. About 38 miles an hour or so scraping her. At least the 101 Scout was able to keep off the ground a little bit better than that. But that's not what this bike is for. This bike is to cruise. And that's how you need to think of it. Think of it in its term of what it is and not what you want it to be. And it rides beautifully as a small cruiser and will do really well in a light cruiser setup. Of course, we do have the Super Scout that is that design. So that does exist. Unfortunately, I don't have one here to play with today because I kind of want to know, because it has different seating. Of course, I want to know how the windshield works with it and all that good stuff. So that one might be the better of the two. But if you go for a Scout Classic, you're not going to be disappointed. It's going to be a great little runabout. And add some bags, add some touring equipment. It'll do great for that medium range touring once again. Again, being held back mostly by the fuel tank size. So at any rate, this is the Rabbit Hedgehog on the 2025 Indian Scout Classic. Another wonderful, wonderful addition to the Scout lineup. This one being the Limited Plus Tech version of it. So it has everything on it. I'll put all the specifications in the description below, as I always do. So at any rate, keep that shiny side up, folks, and promise you if you take one of these out, you're going to love it. And hopefully we'll catch you on the next ride.